Welcome to Kickles and Coffee. My name is Isabel, and I am your host. The following episode with Heather Widener lies very close to my heart because it was recorded only 3 days before her son Dallas Dean Widener was born. Heather grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, where she was a veterinarian for 5 years before she became a professional rock climber. She now lives in Boulder, Colorado with her husband, Chris. Heather is sweet as can be with people and animals, always smiling, but she is relentless on the wall. She's climbed up to 14B Sport, Stock Boys Revenge and Rifle, and 14AR Trad, China Doll in Boulder Canyon. We've known each other for about 8 years, and what started with our little climbing adventures in El Dorado Canyon quickly grew into a very close friendship and many, many deep conversations about all the things, including whether or not we wanted to have babies. And I'll be honest, when I first heard her say she wanted a baby, I was really, really surprised because until then, we would always talk about how we couldn't really imagine having a baby, mainly because we just didn't want to give up our freedom to travel and climb. At first, I had a little freak out moment because selfishly, I was scared of losing her as a friend and a climbing partner. But of course, that passed very quickly when I saw how excited and happy the dream of having your own family made her. In our conversation, Heather shares her decision to become a mom, the incredibly hard challenges that came along with it, and of course, her excitement to raise her own little boy.
No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Do I need to share my Boda box?
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? Welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. It's so exciting to spend just a few days after Christmas with you.
Thank you so much. You're one of my dearest friends, so I'm always happy to be here with you.
I just want to ask, how was Christmas? I mean, you're about to have a baby.
Yes, it was actually one of the best Christmases I've ever had. I think mostly because of the gratitude that I have for having this little baby inside of me, and we're going to get to meet him in just a few days, which we'll get into later, but Christmas was wonderful. My husband, Chris, and I are usually in the Las Vegas area this time of year, rock climbing because it's so beautiful outside, and we usually escape the snow, but this year it's been so warm. It's been nice. We're still getting outside and sticking around Colorado, waiting for the baby to arrive. So we spent Christmas with friends, and it was a really, really nice time.
No, that makes me so happy. That's exciting to have that little guy in there and, kind of vicariously through you experiencing his first Christmas, so to speak, Yeah, it's kind of crazy because you are only a few days. Today is the 27th. You're going to have him on the 30th.
Yes.
This is jumping ahead in the game, but you are scheduled to have a C-section.
Yeah, absolutely. And basically the doctors decided this for me. I'm 41, getting close to 42 years old. So I'm an older mama, and he's actually breech in there. His little head is up high, and he's not following typical protocol. And my amniotic fluid is a little bit low. So the doctor said that's the safest option. We're going to be having a C-section at 39 weeks, so just 1 week early. And he's fully, all developed and grown in there, so it should be the safest option, which is all I'm concerned about at this point. I just want him safe and healthy.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. That's the most important part of it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about the outcome of a healthy and safe baby. So, I'll do whatever I can to make that happen. And, apparently only about 4% of babies are breech, so he's special already.
Oh, he is. He's like, I'm not going upside down. He's like, I don't like to make handstands. So yeah, the baby topic, particularly with you, is so interesting. I've known you for more than 7 years now, and we've had a lot of baby talks over the years. And you know, in the beginning, we were, you know, talking about how we didn't want to have babies and didn't feel the desire to have babies. And, you know, you are a professional rock climber, and it always seemed like, you know, your focus was on your freedom and the freedom to climb and train and travel and just be an independent woman. And I am curious to hear from you. What was the turning point? Because I remember being in Greece in Leonidio climbing with my husband, and suddenly I was getting these WhatsApp messages that were like, Isabel, I kind of feel like maybe there's more to life, which turned into I kind of want a baby, which is then turned into I really want this family. And I was just getting that, you know, that little, these little glimpses of your development of like the train of thought and feelings. And
Oh, I love it.
it was so funny. And I was like, here she goes. It's happening. Oh boy. And I will say at first I was gripped. I'm like, no, I'm losing one. I'm losing a friend. But obviously I'm so happy for you. And I would love to hear more about that transition if you happen to be able to recall.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you. So it was a pretty, you know, stark change of 180, if you could call it. I really didn't want kids. When I was younger, I wasn't the person that went and babysat babies. I was always babysitting for puppies and horses and I never played with dolls. I was always, you know, playing with the Breyer horses. I was just never a kid person, you know, and into adulthood, everyone would say, oh, wait till you hit, 30. Your biological clock's gonna kick in and you're gonna want a kid. And I was like, no, don't want a kid. Wait till you're 35. Nope, no desire. But I have to say, when I was about to turn 40, I just thought, oh, wow, I really have to decide, like, is this something that I want or do not want at all? I think, honestly, the age is what threw me for a loop, because I felt like 40 was that marker of like, ooh, your fertility is going to drop tremendously, and your egg count and everything. And so when Chris, my husband, and I first met, we did go through this like infatuation phase where we, fell in love quickly, and we looked at each other and we were both like, I want your baby someday, that kind of thing. But we developed this life together where we got to travel and climb full time, and it was incredible. I hadn't ever had that much time. I was a veterinarian before being able to be a pro rock climber, and that was really time consuming. And so finally I had time to travel and play. And I thought, why would you ever change this life? It's so beautiful. But I was actually in Greece, in paradise, in Leonido, like you were talking about, Isa, just before you. And everything should have been perfect, right? It's like the most amazing climbing area. And, great friends, surrounded by amazing people and climbing. But I felt like something was missing. And one of our friends there, had his daughter come and visit him. And before she visited, they would, talk each night and FaceTime. And it was so cute. And I just started to yearn for this feeling of family, of my own family with Chris. Because I don't have much of a family otherwise. My mom passed away when I was 19. My brother and I aren't talking for a number of reasons, and it just feels like there's not a lot of family. And basically, after that trip, my best friend's wedding happened. I came back to the States, and there was, it was all very family oriented. So that, in combination with turning 40 that year, I was like, ooh, I think I want to experience having a family, and I want to be able to give love. I felt like I had so much love I wanted to give, and what better way than to, have that through, your own child.
My own child just flapped her
cute
flapped
little ears.
her little ears. My little doggy, my little furry
We're
child
snuggling.
over here. She is snuggling up against Heather and her big belly, which is adorable.
But yeah, it was a crazy transition.
Yeah, no, and I see that.
And for me, climbing will always be very important. But on that trip, I just had this feeling like, what is the meaning of all of this?
Yeah. Do you feel like in some ways, having accomplished so many climbing goals in your life and having, really gotten to explore these different climbing styles and areas in different countries, that you came to this point where it felt that you've done what you needed to do? Or, like you said, climbing is always going to be an important part of your life, but this feeling of accomplishment, this feeling of fulfillment, this feeling of what is one more route?
It all started to kind of feel a little bit, I think shallow is not quite the right word, but it just didn't hold the same kind of reward or appeal that it once did. And I do think that you nailed it in saying, like, I was able to travel and I was able to achieve great things for me as a climber that I'm proud of. And I just feel super lucky, honestly, at this point in my life. And I think 40, the decade turning 40 was a really good time to reflect on all of my different life chapters. I mean, I got to be a veterinarian, have like an amazing profession. And then I got to be a pro climber, and then now I get to be a mom. Like, that's so cool.
That's really exciting. It's almost like another adventure.
Absolutely. And what I hear from my friends with kiddos, they all say that this is going to be the greatest adventure of your life.
I'm reading this book right now called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. And one of the things that he mentioned that I found very interesting was the sustainability of happiness, like what makes you happy and how long it lasts. And it made me think of what you just said about, one more climb and one more thing and one more trip and one more this and one more that. It's like those things he describes as external factors that for sure provide happiness, but not necessarily long lasting. When you buy a house, when you send a climb, when you get that promotion, or that pay raise, these moments are very, very exciting and provide this, fulfillment. But it doesn't necessarily last. And I find it interesting because having a baby, it's not like having the baby itself is going to be the long-lasting happiness. It's the love, because he talks about love. He talks about what actually does provide long-lasting happiness, and those are things like love and peace and fulfillment and gratitude and day-to-day contentment. And those don't depend on, reaching these short-term goals.
Right, absolutely. I think that happiness is a lot about community and feeling connected, which you can certainly find without having a kid. But as far as that kind of unconditional love, I don't know if you could get any closer.
This is like very, very special for me to be able to witness you just shining and glowing in your glory and your big belly right before the big event.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's so special to share this time with you too, because this is, the last time without the little guy.
Yeah,
in my life.
know. It's so interesting. It's going to be different from now on out.
Yeah.
Just moving forward, there will be. And do we have a name?
Not
yet.
Determined.
Okay.
We have a short list. So my husband Chris had a father figure and a climbing mentor from when he was a teenager up until about 12 years ago when he passed away, and his name was Dallas. And so that's definitely a top contender for his name because he was so special and meant so much to Chris. He actually ended up dying in a climbing accident in his 70s, sadly, so it would be a really nice tribute. We also like the name Sunny. It's so happy, and Chris actually had a dream that our little guy was named Sunny in the dream, so that's kind of special. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to pick.
It's really hard to pick
a
names.
name.
Maybe you have to meet him.
It's possible.
It's possible that you just have to meet him.
Yes.
I've heard stories of people not naming their babies for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, why the rush, I guess, right? Birth certificate, whatever.
I know.
Figure that one out
I don't know. I
later.
kind of want to like get him all squared away and
I know.
Sign up for his passport and
I know,
everything, like so we can travel with him while he's
the admin
little.
stuff kicks in.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
But yeah, it's kind of amazing. I'm really curious what it's gonna feel like. He's just like been inside my body for so long. Pregnancy is a long time. They say 9 months gestation, but it's kind of more like 10 months because of the timing of it all. And it's just, that's almost a year of your life carrying this little being inside of you. And for him to just one day be in the outside world, it's very surreal.
That seems so surreal. Tell me more about that and also the path to pregnancy. I would love to hear more.
Yeah. So the first challenge that I encountered was a relationship challenge with Chris because as I was describing, I had this 180-degree turn basically where I went from not ever wanting kids to I think I want a kid. So Chris
I'm ready.
was shocked.
To say the least.
Yeah. So it really took time. We went to therapy about this. It took about 6 months for Chris to say, you know what? Okay. Like, this is going to make you happy. I'm on board, which is huge. That's basically the biggest gift that I feel like he could have given me.
What I've seen in you and Chris that I really appreciate so much is that you're so adventurous and you have done so many things together and, climbed and traveled and challenged each other. So it's just another adventure in some ways, right? It's like you're challenging him to another adventure and something beautiful that he hasn't considered yet.
Absolutely. And he's going to be a great dad. It's just scary, especially when, both of us didn't grow up with idyllic childhood. So
who does?
Right.
No, but I know what you mean. They were like pretty heavy
rough
circumstances, and you can dive in as much as you feel comfortable. But yeah, absolutely, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's a lot harder when you grow up in that kind of environment that's a bit toxic to imagine family as a positive thing. So for Chris to be on board with this was huge, that meant a lot. But it was also really a tough time. It was 6 months of being like, feeling so strongly about something. I really, really wanted a kid, really wanted to do it with Chris, but ultimately making that decision, like if he's not on board, what do I do,
Right.
So, but thankfully he came around and he's on board. And so we started trying and we conceived the first month that we tried, which was incredible. And that was such a relief, especially being older. So I was 40 at the time. But sadly, I miscarried early on. So at the first ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. So I was at 8 weeks and that was devastating. And so I had to have a procedure to remove the embryo, basically, which is awful because my body basically thought it was still pregnant. There was no bleeding. There was no signs that things weren't going well. So that was pretty traumatic. But we got through the surgery and they said, okay, you're going to start your period in 4 to 6 weeks. And then you can start trying after a month, wait it out a little bit. And I waited, 6 weeks rolled around, nothing. 2 months came around, still no period. And they're like, let's do an ultrasound. They did an ultrasound, didn't really find anything. And then they put me on progesterone a couple times, thinking that my body just needed a little help in that direction, and nothing was working. And so finally, 4 months later, they do another ultrasound, and it turned out I had retained products of conception. So there was a bit of the embryo still in there, and my body just thought it was pregnant still. But in that meantime, one of the doctors thought that I had scarring of my uterus, and they recommended seeing a fertility specialist. And that was devastating, because I went from, oh, this can happen, we got pregnant our first try, to I may never be able to experience this. Like, my dream may have just been totally crushed. So that was really hard. But basically got one more surgery done, and 2 weeks later, my period started.
Oh my goodness, what a roller coaster.
But then, we waited a month and then tried and got pregnant our first try. So super thankful.
So grateful for your fertility.
Thank you.
Clearly your body is very young. Very young.
It's tough, and people talk about, well, you're healthy and it doesn't matter if you're, 40, 41, but the truth is your egg count declines rapidly, and there's a 30 to 40% chance of miscarriages at this age. So what I went through is really common, and I found that out, after the fact. After I miscarried, so many women reached out to me and said, basically me too. I had the same thing happen, which was really comforting in a way.
Yeah, I hear that it's something that's not talked about enough.
It's very taboo.
Yeah, I have another friend who went through a very traumatic miscarriage, and she felt very alone. And not until after the fact found out that there were all these other women that had gone through the same and that reached out to her and offered support. I feel like that's just so sad, because if it is so common and something that happens frequently, not only at age 40, but even at age 35.
Absolutely. Or even in your 20s. So I was really thankful, but I was also very scared. Like, when I got pregnant the second time, it's like, it makes you not attached.
Right.
You just kind of wait it out. And so once I got to the 3-month point of pregnancy, I could relax a little bit. And but then, there's the age issues of things like spina bifida, certainly the, Down syndrome and all of that too, which we tested for. It's really nice. They can test for at 10 weeks. And They do a blood test. They don't do amniocentesis anymore, which is nice. But it wasn't until I got to 5 months where I felt like, okay, this is going to happen. We had this big anatomy scan, ultrasound, and you could see like all of his little organs look normal, and even his hard palate, and he had all of his fingers and toes, and that was the point where I could relax and say, okay, this is happening.
That is such a nice feeling.
Yeah, it was
after
amazing.
Having gone through what you had gone through. When you were having this test done, had you given it a lot of thought?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, total personal choice. But for me, I really embraced having a healthy baby, or at least as healthy as you could predict, you know, and we do have all of this testing available, and, these advances in medicine are increasing the quality of life of humans. I know a woman with spina bifida, and her quality is not great, and her lifespan is not very long. Not to judge at all for people who choose to have children with spina bifida, but for me, that was a big deal. I wanted to ensure that I could at least have the healthiest baby I could predict.
Yes.
Now, it is scary, right? Because at any point, there could be something that happens, and we'll just deal with that as we go and do the best that we can.
When you and I spoke previously, before you had the change of heart around having a baby, and we would talk about the things that we find challenging around the idea of having a baby. Or so, for example, loss of freedom, loss of sleep, less quality time with your partner. This was another one of them, is like, what if, your child is born with disabilities and it makes your life more constrained? These sort of challenging and maybe not fearful. I mean, a lot of them are based on reality, but these let's say cons that we would talk about when thinking about having babies. When you started feeling the desire to have a baby, do you feel like these arguments sort of faded away, like they just kind of became in the background, or did you rationalize them out, or are you very well aware of them?
I would say I'm very aware. Well aware that my life is going to change dramatically and that it's not going to be all about me and my freedom anymore and not all about Chris and I's freedom together. We're bringing this little innocent person into the world, and our lives are going to change dramatically, but I think it will overall be so rewarding and just incredible that those other things won't really matter as much. I also feel extremely grateful that I am an older mom, because I don't have these feelings like, oh, if only I could have just done that in my life. I feel very fulfilled with what I've been able to do freedom-wise. Like, I basically had 10 years of freedom that's unheard of, where I was, working as a professional climber, but that's like just fun and a lot of play. If I would have been working full-time as a veterinarian and, went straight from school to a vet, I think I would feel a lot differently. I don't know that if I would have chosen this route in life, I might have just felt like I needed more,
That's so interesting. That makes perfect sense. It's almost like you had the possibility, you had the opportunity to experience both. Like you were a vet, a very, successful vet in Vegas before you got together with Chris, and you got to have that experience. And it was very hard and physical, and you worked long hours, and you were always, sort of go. Exactly.
Yeah, working for the weekends in a sense.
And then climbing on the weekends. And then you got to transition your life into being a full-time climber and like really explore that 100% all year round, which almost led to this like saturation in some ways, where you one day found yourself in Greece going like, wow, everything is perfect. I have everything I need. And yet there's something missing.
Absolutely. And I do think that the climbing lifestyle and being quote unquote free like that, enables you to have a lot of self-reflection time. And I had a lot of growth. I wouldn't have been ready, when I was in my early 30s working as a vet, and I just wasn't emotionally prepared. I think being able to work on myself and have that reflection time over 10 years where you're not in the rat race, it's not go, helped a lot.
I kind of wish like we had more time.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I talk to so many friends that are also athletes and are dancers, travelers, or focused on their career, and it just sometimes feels like we don't have enough time, because I am now 41 and I still don't have a strong desire to have babies. I have more moments of, wow, family could be really nice, but my time is basically like running out, so it's like I feel like it would be so nice not to have this pressure, because I see this also with Pata when he was born and raised in Argentina, In the Latino world, like having babies is very common and very normal, and all of his cousins, had kids young, and he thought he was always going to be a young dad, and but then became a climber and traveled a lot more than the rest of his family, and started seeing what having a baby really entailed, because these young dads, his friends, were, struggling financially or struggling with their partners or even getting divorced. And he's like, wow, nobody tells you how fucking hard this shit is. Yeah. And then suddenly you're like 25 or 30 with, 1 or 2 kids. And he was like, I'm glad I waited so I got to actually, live, vicariously and see what it means to have a child and actually grow up and learn before making such a huge decision.
Right. That's another huge thing. I mean, Chris and I's relationship is very stable. We love each other, and we are also financially stable. And having that stability in life is huge. I feel like, at least for me, bringing in a new life, it feels really good to have a solid foundation.
Absolutely. And I know you have told me this also, that you're very grateful for that you have the financial possibility to have a child, especially in the U.S.
Absolutely.
I think, having grown up in Europe, I would say having a child in the U.S. is a lot more expensive.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite unfair in this country. So, yeah, I'm very, very grateful that I feel like we can give this little guy a really good life.
The little guy. Okay, so I just need to make a little comment on this one. Boy or girl? I know that you kind of wanted to have maybe a girl.
Yeah, so this is so funny, actually. It's so funny.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, so
more
Chris
about that.
Chris and I both, when we imagined having a kid, we really wanted a girl. And I think for me, I can just relate to girls better, right? Because you're a girl. But also because my brother growing up was so mean, and he was so reckless, and he was just naughty. So when I think of little boys, I think of like naughty kids, Mm-hmm. And I think this is kind of a life lesson for me. It's like life's way of being like, all right, not every little boy is going to be like that, or maybe he will. But either way, it's something that I need to confront and to really, consider, and just do the best I can to raise him to be respectful and kind and, the best little guy you can be. But yeah, when they told me, the nurse called and she said, it's a boy, I was kind of like, yay, like how you feel like you should be like, yay, because she's giving you like this quote unquote good news. But I took like 30 minutes and was like, oh my gosh, it's a boy. This isn't what I expected. Da, da. But then, of course, like 30 minutes later, I was like, it's a boy. And he's healthy. It's great. This is so good. Boy. This is great. But it took me a minute. I was like, oh
my goodness, that is so funny. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. I love that story. And I also believe that most women want a girl. Do you think like most women?
Know.
See, because I've heard that a couple times. I personally probably would want a boy. For me, it's the opposite. I feel like I've seen what girls can do in their teenage years.
Yes, you're so right.
And I kind of feel like, and I mean, obviously everybody's going through hormones and everything is awkward for any gender, but girls can be pretty darn nasty.
I also think about the social media factor. I mean, we luckily didn't grow up with that.
Oh, God.
But the pressure to be a woman these days, young woman these days.
Yeah.
That'd be brutal.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you're going to have a baby and it's going to be what it's going to be, right? And like the universe is somehow sending you this gender, and whatever the gender that's even going to be, you don't even know this. Right? Like
they may decide that they don't identify.
They don't identify with being a man or being a boy. And so it's like this whole challenge of just like opening up. But I always, when you told me it's a boy, I smiled inside because I was like, man, this is going to be the cutest, most well-behaved, kindest little gentleman.
Thanks. I sure hope
Just
so.
knowing you. I mean, he's going to be wrapped up in so much love and
Yay.
and well-being, a nourishing environment that's going to support him to be a good man, because I feel like, yeah, for sure, a naughty boy is a naughty boy and a naughty girl is a naughty girl, right?
Right,
But
right.
it has so much to do, all to do with their upbringing and the support that they receive and the love that they receive.
Thanks,
right?
Isa. I hope so. Yeah, that is an interesting question too, and it'll be cool to experience the nurture versus nature. And I think it'll be really cool to kind of revisit your childhood in a way and do things differently, you know, like just be aware of how things were when you grew up and basically make sure you're not making the same mistakes and kind of just making it better, you know, for the little guy.
It's
Giving
like a
him
second chance almost.
Yeah, giving
You know?
him what you always wanted and needed. Ultimately, I mean, they just need love and attention and to feel like they really matter and that they're special. And so, yeah, I'm excited to give him so much of that.
I can just feel that as you're saying it. I can feel it in your body, in your eyes. And yeah, I feel like unconditional love, like you said, feeling loved, feeling accepted, feeling held, no matter what.
Yes.
What a gift.
Yes.
What a gift.
Absolutely.
One of the things I'm curious about, being an athlete myself and a dancer and a climber, how does it feel to literally give up your body for this?
Yeah, it's really different because basically as an athlete, you surround your focus and your day on performance and, you know, eating really well and, you know, also kind of watching your weight and especially with climbing and dancing and you know, you're so invested in your body. And with pregnancy, you kind of just have to put that aside for a bit. And maybe it's kind of a lesson in being a little less self-involved. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but it's just like giving your body over for a different purpose. And for me, it was the hardest part for me was realizing that as a climber and being pregnant, I couldn't lead belay and I couldn't lead climb anymore, but mostly the lead belaying was not recommended to me by doctors. Apparently, sometimes, you know, especially if you're belaying someone heavier and you get pulled up really fast, that change in direction, that really quick change in motion can sometimes cause placental separation. So it's just not worth it. But for me, that was really hard because that meant Chris and I couldn't climb together. You know, we needed a third person already, and we don't even have our little guy here, you know? So that was devastating. I definitely had a little cry about that because that's one of Chris and I's favorite things to do together and one of the ways that we connect. But really, and I think this comes down to just gratefulness and being an older mom, I was like, you know what, this is such a short time in my life in the big picture, and I can spare, 10 months of my life to not, do any extreme climbing. Again, I've been able to do so much, and now I'm ready for this next chapter. But it is interesting because I do feel like when you walk into the climbing gym being super pregnant, people look at you like you have two heads. It's really funny, but I've been lucky. I've still been able to climb. I'm climbing tomorrow, actually, one more time before the C-section. I'm a fanatica. Awesome. But yeah, I've been lucky. Like my third trimester, I was able to top rope a 12D in the gym, and that's the hardest climb I've ever done in the gym. So I felt really good, especially second and third trimesters.
Nice.
And just a few days ago, I was still able to get up some 5'11s, and, I've gained 40 pounds, which is insane.
Dude, when you shed that weight, you're going to be crushing. Talking about, weight training. I mean, for crying out loud.
It's also like, it's like hanging that much weight on you, but also taking away all of your core.
Right, nothing. You're just like, I've got nothing.
Yeah. So I feel like my fingers and my arms are still pretty strong. Yeah. And it's funny too. I was really concerned about the hormone relaxin because people talk about, your ligaments getting looser because of these bodily changes from this hormone called relaxin. And personally, I haven't had any tweaks or anything climbing. I felt really good. I felt better climbing than I have walking, honestly. The walking is sometimes hard because there's so much pressure, and and then
it's nicer just to go upward.
Yeah, and it's great. There's this full body harness that I use, and just top roping in the gym, but it feels really nice.
Awesome.
And it's nice to have like a little sense of normalcy because your body is changing, and your hormones are all over the place. So to have that, to be able to just still climb and have your passion while you're going through all these changes I felt really thankful for.
And a little bit of a routine.
Yes.
Something that like I know the climbing gym, even though people are looking at me like I have to.
Yeah. I mean, the other great thing is I have a friend named Laura, and she's also pregnant, and she's a climber that, is obsessed like me, and she's 7 weeks behind me, and so we've gotten to kind of experience this together, and that's huge because being a climber and pregnant is certainly different, or being an athlete and pregnant is different than not. I mean, this is your body. This is you're using it fully versus sitting at a desk all day, and those changes really hit hard. It's a lesson in letting go and being okay with change, which I think are great lessons for having a child too. It's like embracing change and being flexible.
Yeah, and also isn't that just like fucking like life lesson? Letting go and accepting change. I'm like,
but for some
reminds
reason,
me of my last therapy session.
Absolutely, but for some reason, because
it's like the accentuated, like it's like the extreme experience of it.
It makes it easier to embrace change for me.
Absolutely.
Versus before, when it's like I'm working on a hard project and I'm beating myself up.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier now because this is for a little baby. This is for a huge cause. But that said, it's really funny being big. Like I've never been like
you do not look big. I mean, your belly looks big, but you don't look big.
40 pounds, like I've gained like 30.
Your belly is obviously, you're tiny though. Your belly is going to stick out so immensely.
I've gained 38% of my body composition.
Percentage.
I was like, wow, that's a lot.
30% of you. I mean, can you imagine? That is incredible.
And that's the other thing. The body is so incredible. And it's actually really fascinating just experiencing pregnancy because the female body is amazing. I mean, just all of the hormones too. I've actually felt the most calm and happy I've ever felt in my entire life. And Chris has told me that too. He's like, you have been the happiest that I've ever been around you.
Man, now I'm thinking maybe I should get pregnant. Do I still have time?
I've also heard from other women that it's totally different, and they're freaking out.
I've heard some heinous pregnancy stories. Okay,
but for me, the progesterone has been good.
It's been nice. I know last time I saw you, just a few, I don't know, like maybe a couple of months ago, we were sitting on your patio, and you're just like, I feel like I'm just like on muscle relaxant and anxiety and antidepressant pills, and I'm like, give me that. Give me that now.
Yeah, I've never felt so calm and at ease and just content. It's really, really nice.
So you probably, knowing that you're on all these drugs, I'm not thinking about the fact that, COVID is killing everyone, and this country is divided, and this world is dying of global warming. That's not something that right now is entering your. You're like, this baby and I, and fuck all y'all.
I know, right? It is a scary time with COVID and everything. But, this is evolutionary biology.
I mean,
it's
is.
crazy, right? The desire to have this little person in my life is trumping all of that. So,
Speaking of trumping, who knows that this might not be our next president of the United States. This little guy will change the future of America.
he might. And how special would that be? And it's cool because I've been on both sides. Like, I would never judge anyone for not having a baby or having a baby. I get both sides, completely.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to just be able to relate, I guess.
I know. You know what I think is even scarier than that? What's going on in this world is the Boulder helicopter moms.
It is pretty funny. So what I've experienced in Boulder, being pregnant, is overall like tremendous support, which has been awesome, especially in the climbing community. There's this the mommy subculture, and when they find out someone's pregnant, it's like all of a sudden you're just close, and like the support has been incredible. Like these people that I've known for years but haven't been close to have reached out, and we've actually like created these really nice bonds.
Nice.
Because of just mamahood.
Yeah.
It's like the sisterhood of
So you have
mamas.
actually had a really nice experience.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
But it's funny because many of them are very like Boulder hippie, and they're all like, "What's your birth plan?" My birth plan is whatever the
fuck is gonna
whatever
happen.
the doctor says.
Yeah, whatever the doctor says.
I'm very science based. My
Yeah.
dad was an OBGYN. I'm like,
Yes.
I trust in medicine, and no disrespect to the mamas that want to give birth in a tub at home, but
Yeah.
that ain't happening for me. I'm like, give me the drugs, please, epidural. I do think that in general, people have become better parents. At least that's what I've observed in the Boulder area is that they are so concerned with doing the quote-unquote right thing that it can be perceived as like perfectionism, but I think it comes down to like they actually really, really care.
They care. I was about to say that. They actually care.
Which is like amazing because I feel like back in the day, our parents were like, whatever.
Deal with it.
Yeah, like
with
I'm
it.
gonna go have my cocktail and
Yeah.
I don't care about your homework. Like you're making
Or your
me
emotions or therapy was therapy.
You're making me miss the football game.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the parents
agree.
that are
Yeah.
really concerned. They want the right school and they want the right food and all this stuff.
And all that said, I have to say, so one of my dancers, Chris, he works in education and he works with kids, and he has an incredible community of families that he works with because he teaches music and parkour and dance and things, and he brings these families to our performances. And they come, and the moment we get done with our performance, these kids between the age of like literally 3 and 14 run to my climbing wall, get on the climbing wall, and they're up there. And their parents, usually like funky young kind of parents, they're like, "Oh my goodness, your performance was so incredible. My kids were just like screaming the whole time." And that is very
what
Boulder.
an incredible opportunity. And it's in large part because it's a really wealthy area, and
yes,
so
it
we
is.
can embrace the arts and all of these cool things. I
that
just
don't
love
even
it.
exist in other places too, right?
Absolutely. And it's just such a beautiful place, and the ability to get outside and all of these cool kids camps. I mean, what an incredible place to grow up. And I'm hoping to travel a lot with him too, just to get different perspectives, of course. And I feel like it's
you
great.
guys will better be visiting us in Spain.
Absolutely.
Patas house will be done soon.
Yay.
We'll have the other apartment downstairs. You guys can live down there. And
I love it. We're there.
oh, it'd be nice for this little guy to learn some Spanish.
Yes, that's the other thing that I really want him to grow up with is
Some languages.
learning Spanish.
He will.
I practice my Spanish a little bit every day. It's not great, but I try.
Don't worry, I'll come over.
Yo trato.
Yo trato de hablar español. I will be the crazy German aunt that speaks German and Spanish with him. I will not speak English with him.
Me lo encanto.
Hablo español und ich spreche Deutsch, and the little guy will only speak those two languages with me.
So good.
I love it.
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh my God, Heather. I feel like we could keep talking, but this was incredible. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time.
Oh, thank you.
Right before this birth.
This is really special.
It's very special.
Yeah, I really appreciate you and all of the interest and to just, and spreading the love. So thank you, Isa.
I love you, and who knows, maybe there will be a follow-up episode later down the road. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to Isabel at kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL at kegelsandcoffee.com, or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.